Hey everyone, and welcome as we continue our study through the New Testament, looking at the New Testament church. And today we're going to be looking at the storm at sea. Again, we've been following along with us in the book of Acts. We're in Acts 27 today. We're just finishing up. We see that Paul started sailing for Rome yesterday, and today it's going to cover the storm that we see and see. And again, this is a little bit of a shorter read, not super long. I mean, honestly, the notes on this one is not super long either because everything Luke did such a great job of putting so much detail into this that there's just not a lot that to go over because he did put so much detail in it. But we'll read through it, look through it, and then continue on. So Acts 27:13 through 26. So when a light wind began blowing from the south, the sailors thought they could make it, so they pulled up anchor and sailed close to the shore of Crete. But the weather changed abruptly, and a wind of typhoon strength, called a northeaster, burst across the island and blew us out to sea. The sailors couldn't turn the ship into the wind, so they gave up and let it run before the gale. We sailed along the sheltered side of a small island named Cauda or Kada, where we were where with great difficulty we hoisted aboard the lifeboat being towed behind us. Then the sailors bound ropes around the hull of the ship to strengthen it. They were afraid of being driven across the sandbar of Syrtis off the African coast, so they lowered the sea anchor to slow the ship, and we were driven before the wind. The next day, as gale force winds continued to batter the ship, the crew began throwing the cargo overboard. The following day, they even took some of the ship's gear and threw it overboard. The terrible storm raged for many days, blotting out the sun and the stars, until at last all hope was gone. No one had eaten for a long time. Finally, Paul called the crew together and said, "Men, you should have listened to me in the first place and not left Crete. Excuse me, you would have avoided all this damage and loss. But take courage, none of you will lose your lives, even though the ship will go down. For last night an angel of the Lord, to whom I belong and whom I have served, stood beside me, and he said, 'Don't be afraid, Paul, for you will surely stand trial before Caesar. What's more, God in his goodness has granted safety to everyone sailing with you. So take courage, for I believe God. It will be just as he said, but we will be shipwrecked on an island.'" It's like, good news is we're all going to survive. Bad news is we're going down. And so this storm was called a northeaster. It was a typhoon strength, very threatening. It was typhoon strength, very threatening to both the cargo and the crew. I mean, if you've ever been in a typhoon or a hurricane, anything like that, they're extremely powerful, and it's not something you wanted to be sailing in. And so basically what they were forced to do is let the ship run before the gale. Basically, they sailed, just let it go, right? They just let it go. They sailed past a small island. Some say Claudia or Kada. Some manuscripts actually read Claudia or Claudia. Today it's known as Gaudos, I think is how you say that, and it's south of Crete. And so we're not 100% sure exactly which one, but we're pretty sure we know which island it is that they ran past. And so they got out and they did the typical things that they would do in a storm like this. They bind the ropes around the ship's hull. It's called frapping in nautical terms, but it was intended to strengthen it against the tremendous pressure of the storm. Just basically help hold it together. And keep it from coming apart while in all this violence. And we see that here that the violence and the persistence of the storm led them to start throwing the cargo overboard, and eventually the stuff required to run the ship, and the crew was starting to abandon hope. They had lost hope because there's no way we're going to survive this. And that's when Paul addresses the crowd, right? Or I'm sorry, the crew. He kind of first gets on to him like, "Well, if you'd have listened to me," right? But then he encouraged him like, "Look, okay, I guess as encouraging as it can be, we're going to shipwreck, right? But an angel of the Lord appeared to me and let us know we're going to survive. All of us, everyone here is going to survive. We are going to shipwreck. We're going to end up shipwrecked on an island, but we're all going to be okay." So, I mean, a lot of bad news in that, but the good news is everyone's going to survive. And so, for whatever reason, God allowed this to happen. God delayed his trip to Rome, and we'll see. And tomorrow we'll actually look at the actual shipwreck itself, what happened, and where they ended up being shipwrecked at, and so we'll look at that as we continue on. Again, like I said with a lot of this is very factual stuff, just very historical stuff. So there's not a lot to dive deep into. I try to find as much as I can with some of these, but honestly, a lot of it just is what it is. It's what Luke wrote it, and Luke did a very good job of going into detail on a lot of this stuff. And so there's not a whole lot more to go on to. So I try to explain some of the cultural things that happens with these. But as always, I hope everyone is learning from these. I appreciate everyone who takes time to watch, and I encourage you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet, just so if you want to continue to follow along with us as we go through this study and continue to chronologically go through the New Testament. But yeah, encourage you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that. And as always, I appreciate everyone who takes time to watch, and I hope y'all have a wonderful day.